Thank you for being here this morning. The Biden administration continues to egregiously weaponize the federal government against Joe Biden's top political opponent. This abuse of power is rotting out numerous federal agencies. The unequal application of justice by Joe Biden's DOJ must be stopped. There cannot be one set of rules if your last name is Biden or Clinton and another set of rules for everyone else. House Republicans will continue to deliver much-needed oversight to cut out the rot in these federal agencies and deliver accountability and transparency for the American people as we continue to work hard to implement our commitment to America. Last week, while it should not have taken a threat of contempt, the House Oversight Committee successfully demanded and reviewed critical documents from the FBI regarding Joe Biden's corruption. This week, we will hold the Biden administration accountable by standing up for the American people to stop the outrageous and really insane ban on gas stoves, a bad idea that started in New York that is now being embraced by every Democrat and the Biden administration. We will pass the REINS Act and the Separation of Powers Restoration Act of 2023, and House Republicans will stand up for Second Amendment rights with H.J. Res. 44, a resolution restoring constitutional rights, especially for our disabled veterans, our wounded warriors. Here to speak about so many of our legislative items on the floor this week. As we do every week, we highlight a freshman. This freshman is just incredible. His military service, his success starting businesses that work with our military every day. He's a colleague of mine on the House Armed Services Committee and a true rising star from Florida, Corey Mills.
Thank you all so much. As the chairwoman had talked about, the dangerous precedence which has been set by the bureaucratic individuals who are unelected officials who think they're lawmakers bypassing our Congress and our congressional rights is truly a threat to our constitutional republic. The ATF's rule illustrates the dangers of unchecked administrative agencies that is willing to circumvent all of Congress, which is the American people. This is a continuation of the Biden administration's effort to erode American Second Amendment rights. But this is also specifically the ATF's rule would curb the Second Amendment rights of disabled veterans who have put their lives out on the line for our country. One of those individuals is a Florida resident. His name is Rick Cicero, who had lost his right arm in an explosion in Afghanistan serving our country. To quote him, he stated that getting that skill back, it reinvigorates you and it helps to maintain a bit of confidence that you're still able to do something. Now, this isn't something where the ATF is moving forward and trying to pass a new law, but actually the opposite. The ATF had this law in place where it was okay for almost 10 years. This right here in itself, actually, and the ATF are previously approving these braces, are now backtracking on this to criminalize millions of Americans. We must stop the unelected bureaucrats who think they are lawmakers, but more importantly, we must ensure this rule does not go into effect to hurt our veterans and our law-abiding citizens. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that there are around 4.9 million veterans with service-connected disabilities who had fought for our country over the last 2 decades. This right here would not only impede their ability to continue their operations, but also hurt them from a psychological perspective where much of this is still very impactful for them on a mental wellness situation. For many disabled veterans, pistol braces are a necessary tool for them to exercise their rights safely and the right to bear arms. This ATF rule goes into effect. It not only impacts millions of Americans, but the men and women who bled for this country will be subject to fines and jail time. This will criminalize millions of law-abiding, responsible gun-owning Americans, with a portion of that being our disabled veterans who we actually feel deserve better. With that, I field back and turn it over to our Majority Whip, Mr. Tom Emmer.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Teams aren't built on the first day of practice, which, by the way, I have to comment on this wonderful man up here with the Golden Knights hat in honor of the fact that the holy grail of God's sport will be on the line tonight. Again, teams aren't built on the first day of practice. Our Republican House majority has worked hard over the last 5 months to become a great team, and we've had a lot of success. As with every team, the Republican House majority has had to learn how to work together to build that success. And as with every team, you win some games and you lose some every now and then too. But you always come out stronger, and that's exactly what we've done. First big test after first big test, House Republicans have continued to defy expectations and to deliver big wins for the American people. It started with the Speaker's fight in January. It continued with H.R. 1, the Lower Energy Costs Act, H.R. 2, the Secure the Border Act, and our latest debt ceiling package, the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Of course, there will be days where we fight it out for the best possible outcome. But that's the beauty of having a diverse conference made up of 222 members with different ideas and different perspectives. Ultimately, we always rally together around what's best for the American people and the greatest country on the face of the planet. I'm proud of what we've accomplished so far, and I look forward to what we're going to accomplish going forward. Now, let's go have another full week of wins for the American people. And with that, I turn it over to our leader, Steve Scalise.
Love the energy the hockey guy brings. Thank you, Whip. We've got a busy week this week. You're going to see starting tonight a number of pieces of legislation pushing back on the real radical extremism from Biden and all of his different agencies that are going after hardworking families. If you look at the pistol brace bill, and I think Corey talked about it really well, the idea that the ATF would try to retroactively make felons out of millions of Americans who just want to exercise their Second Amendment rights. We've seen from the very beginning, Joe Biden wants to take away gun rights of law-abiding citizens. He's tried it multiple different ways. But coming through the back door, trying to retroactively make felons out of people, including military veterans who lost limbs fighting for our freedoms, is shameful. And we're standing up against that. I think you're going to see a bipartisan vote on the floor for that bill this evening. We're starting also bringing some of the legislation. We've got two different bills covering a few of the different angles and attacks we're seeing from the Biden administration, trying to take away people's gas stoves. This is almost laughable, except it's real. The idea that the federal government wants to tell you what car you can buy by trying to ban the combustion engine through rules by unelected bureaucrats. Now they want to tell you what kind of stove you have to operate in your home, and having to pick a less efficient and more costly option by banning gas stoves. We're pushing back against that too. We're also bringing up a veto override today on a piece of legislation where you saw D.C. going after cops, once again siding with some of the far left groups who want to make it harder for cops to do their jobs protecting our communities and keeping people safe. We're bringing that just tonight. And then you're going to see us continue throughout the week. The REINS Act, a bill that says unelected bureaucrats shouldn't be able to come up with an idea that they haven't even passed through Congress that has devastating impacts on the economy. Time and time again, we see rules coming out of agencies that nobody can explain. Yeah, maybe we've seen them come out of states like New York and California, where those crazy ideas are running over 1 million people out of their states to other states. If they bring those crazy ideas to the United States, there's nowhere else to go if they ruin this country. And so the REINS Act says, if a rule or regulation by an unelected bureaucrat has a major impact on the economy, it's got to go through Congress first. We're up for election every 2 years. We have to go before the voters and be held accountable for the actions that are being taken. Shouldn't we be the ones that have to decide whether or not an idea from an unelected agency ultimately happens or not? If they want to be legislators, they should run for Congress, but they shouldn't be able to have devastating impacts on families, raising costs. You think inflation is high and is a problem? We agree with you. One of the problems you see inflation so high is because all these unelected bureaucrats are coming up with crazy ideas, and those crazy ideas don't just stay in the agency. They actually go all across this country and raise costs and harm hardworking families. Enough is enough. We're pushing back on all of that this week with the bills we're bringing forward. With that, we'll take some questions. Yeah. Obviously, as you talk about the substance, what you first can't get past is the fact that justice is not being carried out equally. Look at what happened on the Senate floor yesterday. And I think this has got to be covered and be talked about. But you literally had Senator Grassley talk about the fact that the FBI had information of audio recordings of the Burisma executives talking about bribing Biden family members. And I don't hear anybody in the press talking about it. I don't see the Justice Department going after it. In fact, the Justice Department tried to cover this up when they gave the information to the membership in the committee. It was redacted. It wasn't redacted in the original document that Senator Grassley and a few others got to see, but ultimately when the full committee got to see the document, it's not. So people are asking the question, and the courts are going to decide the substance. I'm not an attorney, but I look at the idea that justice is supposed to be blind and just question and wonder, is it being carried out fairly? When you have DAs in a state like New York running on the idea that they're going to go after a person, not that they're going to just follow the facts wherever they lead, but they're just going to target individuals, when the president's main opponent for his reelection seems to be treated in a very different way than anyone else, including Joe Biden himself or Hillary Clinton or others. That's what people can't get beyond. Yeah. Well, ultimately, look, this is in the courts, but also look at some of the photos that were being sensationally shown over the weekend. There was a box that was shown with all these documents spewed out. And as people looked at those documents, it turned out it wasn't anything classified. It was newspaper clippings and some personal items presented to try to give the impression that there's all these classified documents just laying around on the floor. And yet you contrast that with Joe Biden's garage, where there were classified documents going back to when he was a United States senator, not even a president. And which act governs a president? Is it the Presidential Records Act? Now they seem to be using the Espionage Act just specifically after Trump. Again, is justice being carried out fairly is the question when you see some of those pictures and go, wait a minute, these are clippings and they're trying to present it as classified documents. People are looking at that wondering. Yeah. Well, I think if you saw the Justice Department and other agencies carrying out the law equally, when you see some of these charges, again, audio recordings, this was from years ago with Burisma, and when they say paid Biden, the first question that's going to be asked, which Biden? Multiple Bidens. Jamie Comer's committee has shown we're getting millions of dollars from shell corporations. Again, where's that public raid? Did you see a raid on Joe Biden's garage? Did you see a raid on Hillary's server? She wasn't president of the United States, and she had classified documents on a server that she destroyed. Almost kind of jokes about it now because she knows that she's going to be treated differently. That the different treatment is what angers people. Yes, ma'am.
Do you support impeaching President Biden based off of the recordings that Senator Grassley testified yesterday and the FTC documents?
Well, if you look at a number of our committees are looking at accountability, and I'll call it accountability on a number of fronts. You're seeing Mark Green's committees looking into Mayorkas. Secretary Mayorkas has had articles of impeachment filed against him, but also all of us up here have talked about the crisis at the border and the fact that he hasn't been doing his job. There's a 5-point oversight investigation being looked into regarding Mayorkas' job performance. There's others as well. And what I've always said is, as majority leader, we want the committees to go do their work. We, as a Republican conference, wanted to get back to regular order where under Speaker Pelosi, bills were written in the Speaker's office. Committees weren't even writing their own bills, and they'd be dumped on the floor, and they'd say, you got to pass a bill to find out what's in it. We've gotten beyond that. We have a 72-hour rule to read a bill. But more than that, before a bill even comes to the floor, the committees are doing the work. Right now, you've got a number of committees that are getting the facts out, and ultimately with any investigation and accountability that would go with it. And, the ultimate accountability would be impeachment for anybody, but you start it with getting out the facts, and that's what the committees are doing right now, as they should be. Yeah. All in the back, yes. Wait, and we'll do a non-Trump question right after this one. How about that?
I just want to ask, many of the grievances that the Freedom Caucus had with the leadership was that there were apparently forward with leadership making certain guarantees to certain members of certain caucuses without bringing in the full conference?
Well, look, we just had a conference meeting where we talked about some of this, but ultimately we've been having meetings with both Freedom Caucus members, non-Freedom Caucus members. Our whole conference has been, especially this all revolves around spending. I mean, it's, the fiscal year 22 levels, which we went back to in our original debt ceiling bill. The Limit, Save, Grow Act had a lot of important reforms in it. And then, there were some members that only wanted that. But ultimately, that number that we set in that bill that went out said we would go back to the fiscal year 22 levels. We still have an appropriations process that's just getting started. And I'm very encouraged by what Kay Granger and her committee are doing, because they're committed to getting all of the bills out. We've got these new numbers now that they're going to start writing to, but those are caps. Doesn't mean you can't go below that. In fact, you're seeing rescissions, other things, but also limitations. Amendments to limit or defund certain things are also going to be coming forward in the appropriations process, both in committee and on the floor. You're going to see a very robust process over spending. All of these fights are about something we all agree on. There might be disagreements over where exactly we want to go, but all of us want to get control over spending in Washington, because it's the reason you have record high inflation. It's the reason you're seeing interest rates go through the roof, because Washington continued over 2 years of Joe Biden's administration to spend trillions of dollars of money we don't have. We're resetting that ship. Yes, ma'am.
To continue the team metaphor, you talk about this being a strong team. If you look at last week, it almost felt like you were tackling your own quarterback, or members of your team were tackling your own quarterback. How are you guys going to move forward together? If even yesterday Gates told us the threat could be every week if they don't get what they want. How will you guys move past this 5% of the cup?
This communication and respect. It's the same thing last week, and I've warned you for the last 5 months, we're not going to always be successful. We reached a point where the members literally want to have a discussion about how we proceed from here. And keep in mind, we've also been here now, I think it's 7 weeks straight. That tends to bring people together over time. I think it's all about communication. It's all about listening. And as you know, if you've talked to me, I don't give a darn how you identify yourself within the conference. Doesn't matter. Each person is an individual entity that works for 600 to 750,000 people at home. No one here voted for them. So we need to listen to them. We need to hear them. And as best we can, we just got to make sure that everybody gets back out on the field, runs the next play, and is successful. And we'll keep
Our conference chair has something on that too.
And the media sounds so disappointed as Republicans work through and continue to put wins up for the American people. This goes back to the start of this Congress. We have been consistently underestimated. We're underestimated every single week. This is one of the slimmest majorities in modern history, but yet we put forward and passed a historic border security bill, the largest deficit reduction in the history of Congress. We passed an energy independence bill, a parents' bill of rights, and this year we're going to pass important legislation from the REINS Act to standing up for constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens, especially our veterans. So the media every week, you guys underestimate us, but we will be laser focused on delivering results for the American people.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Today, y'all set the vote on the ATF pistol break
Yeah.
bill. Speaker McCarthy said last week that the Clyde thing, that was police, and that's what started this whole thing. In hindsight, knowing how this played out now, would you have called Andrew Clyde?
Well, we've been working, Andrew Clyde and I specifically, for over 2 months on this bill. If you go back to when the bill was going through Judiciary Committee, it actually had to get delayed a few weeks because there were vote issues. This bill has always had a less than 218 commitments. And, the whip knows this. As you bring a bill to the floor, you want to have a high level of confidence that it's going to pass. There's a lot of bills you come to the floor with where you don't have a hard, and I'm just speaking from when I was whip, I'm surely not going to speak for Tom. There were times where you have a high-profile bill where you don't quite have 218, but you see where the trend's going. And it takes months in some cases to bring a bill like that to the floor because there are members that aren't there and you're working them to get there. And we've been moving people every week on this bill, but it's been incremental. And in fact, even over the weekend, I gave Andrew Clyde some more names, and he helped move some of those people. But he's heard some of the opposition, let's just say, or the hesitation that members have had and the reasons why they just weren't quite there, and we're working to get them there. Ultimately, we're going to pass this bill, but it has not been easy because there's been a lot of members that have had questions about it that we've been working through their questions. Any big bill has had that. This bill's taken a few months. We've had other bills that have taken months to get to the floor. What I've told Andrew Clyde from the beginning, and I've repeated this over and over to him for months now, my objective is to pass his bill, not just to bring his bill to the floor, but to pass his bill. Big difference between the two, because this is an important issue. The Second Amendment rights of millions of Americans are at stake. So you don't just bring the bill to the floor because somebody wants it up 3 weeks ago if it's going to fail, when you can hold off and keep working to grow that coalition. We have been growing that coalition. The whip has done a great job helping us grow that coalition, identifying the members we needed to keep working on, and we've been working on them. And a lot of folks that care about the Second Amendment outside of this city really care about this too. You know a lot of the big names, the NRA, Gun Owners of America, the National Shooting Sports Foundation are all supportive. There are a lot of military veteran groups that are strongly supporting this too, because disabled veterans especially are at risk if we don't overturn this. And so we're doing this for millions of Americans, including a lot of disabled veterans who otherwise won't be able to exercise their constitutional right. That's why it's so important that we don't just bring the bill, but that we pass the bill, and that's what we'll be doing tonight. Thank you.